We're ready to call the meeting, officially call the meeting to order. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the September 12th, 2024 Baltimore City Planning Commission. My name is Sean Davis. I have the pleasure of chairing the commission. Sitting to my right is Stephanie Smith, Assistant Director of Planning and Secretary for the commission. Ms. Secretary, will you call roll?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Robin Allen, Commissioner Allen is not going to be, is absent today. I guess Alejandra Ivanovich. The Honorable Eric Costello. Commissioner Horn is absent. I believe Commissioner Claudia Jolene is also absent.
Correct.
And Commissioner Doug McCoach, I believe, is also absent.
Yep.
And then in your, what's your last name, Sean?
Sean Burnett.
What's your last name, Sean? Burnett. Commissioner Sean Burnett. Vice Chairman Eric Stevenson.
Present.
And of course, Mr. Chair, you're here.
Present. All right, with that, we have before us the meeting minutes for our August 22nd, 2024 meeting. Just, actually, let me step back. For the record, we have established a quorum for the commission. Henceforth, if anyone unfortunately leaves, it's my understanding once a quorum has been established, it's good for the rest of the meeting. So we're good to go to conduct our business. All right. We have before us our meeting minutes for August 22nd, 2024. I was not at that meeting, so are there any questions or comments regarding those minutes?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner and Vice Chair Stevenson. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Thank you, Secretary Smith. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? I will abstain, as I suggest. Ally will as well.
Okay.
All right. And we have our CIP transfers from the September 4th Board of Estimates meeting. There were a total of, I think there were, let me see,
6 items.
6 items. Thank you very much, Vice Chair Stevenson. Do we have?
I only have questions on 3 of them.
All right, Mr. Yeah.
So the first question is, and I don't know if these are statements more than questions, but it's a question in the form of an ask. So number 3 is a transfer of $30,000 from general funds unallocated reserve. Can we have balances for these unallocated reserve accounts either when we're reviewing the CIP budgets and or when we're making these transfers? It seems like if that should be readily available. If we're taking $30,000 from an account, we should know how much
Is
is
left.
in the account.
Ms. Ahern, is that possible?
Yep, I think it would be very reasonable to ask agencies to speak to all of their account
Unallocated reserves.
balances as part of the CIP process. Or we could build it into the transfer process as well, or both.
Great.
Yeah, I think it would be beneficial to have it as both, as part of, when they're going through their annuals, what do you have in reserves? And then as you're allocating, transferring money from a reserve account into a specific project, what's the balance of the reserve now? Just to keep some transparency. Good.
Great, thank you. And so for items 5 and 6, these are larger transfers for DPW, also noted as reserve accounts, so I think the same question would stand. But I'm a little bit less clear on these funding sources, just because they say revenue bonds, and don't we already budget the revenue bond money? So could you clarify that for me?
Yep, so DPW, they budget, they request the appropriations for the revenue bonds as part of the budget. They don't actually go in and sell the revenue bonds and collect the cash until after the expenses have been incurred. So there have been times in the past where a project was either canceled or came in under budget. Not often, but it has happened. And they'll put those, because capital appropriations don't expire in the city, they'll kind of do an accounting adjustment to move them to an unallocated account so they can close the project. We have, and perhaps I need to come back for a briefing session soon, but we have built in instructions into the fiscal 26 CIP planning process to guide how those unallocated accounts can be used going forward. And we've said that if the amount left over or the amount that you're putting back to unallocated is over a certain threshold, you need to come back and do it through a subsequent year's CIP so that there is visibility into when we're doing that and redirecting those appropriations to a new project.
Good.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
With those questions, do we have any other questions or comments on the CIP transfers? If not, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Vice Chair Stevenson. Do we have a second?
Second.
That was like pulling teeth. All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the minor subdivision final plans for 2025 through 005 and 1022 Joe Avenue. Any questions or comments regarding this? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
I'll motion.
Thank you.
Second.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Finally, on the consent agenda, minor subdivision final plans 2025-008 on 1212 Union Avenue. Any questions or comments? Not, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? With that, I turn it over to you, Ms. Secretary, for the regular agenda, calling of the first item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first item under the regular agenda is City Council Bill -24/0576 concerning historic preservation, conservation districts, the establishment thereof. I think the presentation will be by Mr. Eric Holcomb.
Mr. Holcomb, it's been so long since we've seen you. Thank you very much for.
Sorry.
Oh, press the, yeah, there you go.
Apologize, I'm back. Yeah. So let's go this really quickly. It's a very exciting topic, but probably a boring presentation. A lot of word salad here. But so this is the bill that can establish the program to create conservation districts. And the conservation district, we've been pursuing this for many years, and several of the reasons why is what a conservation district would be. It is a district that has a concentration of historically significant structures that together create a unique historic character of neighborhoods. A conservation district would protect its historic character through a CHAP-administered design review process for new construction, demolition, and limited types of alterations. The proposed design review for conservation districts is less restrictive than the design review for local historic districts in Baltimore. That's really the only difference between the two districts. Benefits of becoming a conservation district: first, preserve and protect the overall character of a neighborhood. But it also would provide a public forum for community input for new construction, demolition, and significant alterations. It would allow a community voice in those types of development. Historic properties and conservation districts would be eligible to apply for the historic preservation tax credits. The bill before you has that fixed to allow historic properties and conservation districts to get the CHAP credit. And we are working with the Maryland Historical Trust, and hopefully we'll be able to make historic properties and conservation districts eligible for the state tax credit too. So we're going to work very hard to do that. Probably the biggest reason why we are trying to create a less stringent district is to make sure that the maintenance and rehabilitation costs are more affordable. That's probably the biggest thing, and that's why most of the folks would support conservation districts. And of course, this is also a way for us to preserve and celebrate the history of all Baltimoreans. I've been here for 31 years, and just to let you know, I've talked to 150 neighborhood associations, and there's a lot of those associations with people on limited means that would love to have some sort of preservation tool with them, but they don't want the increased costs. So this is something that we're trying to address here. Approximately 90% of the 252 neighborhoods in Baltimore are at least 50 years old. So what that means is probably 90% of 252 neighborhoods could be eligible for historic designation. Today, we have 38 local historic districts. We've been around since 1964. That's 60 years. We have a designation rate at CHAP of one district every 1.5 years. If we wanted to designate, it would take CHAP over 300 years to designate all the neighborhoods in Baltimore worthy of designation. We believe that conservation districts will really allow us to more quickly protect our historic fabric. Conservation districts can also be another tool to preserve our historic and, more importantly, use that history to revitalize our communities. I think it's a great complement to neighborhood plans and strategic plans. Equity. Now, I went through the planning department's equity plan, and there are 4 different components, and I'll just tell you how it meets the 4 components here. The structural equity, which is what historic advantages or disadvantages have affected residents in the given community. This would allow many neighborhoods with people with limited means to use historic preservation tools. We think that's very important. Procedural equity, this would allow neighborhoods to participate in their larger changes to their community, to the development and evolution of their community. Distributional equity, the conservation districts would allow for more property owners to participate in the tax credit programs as well as design review. I've been thinking a lot of the but-for the CHAP tax credit. And I can tell you that in the neighborhoods, the more distressed neighborhoods, the CHAP credit is absolutely essential for the rehabilitation of many of these buildings. So this would also allow, it would expand the eligibility of that tax credit to many more neighborhoods. And transgenerational equity, I think, is really important. We know through all of the economic research that's been done on historic preservation that historic districts, whether it's a local or a national or a conservation district, they always maintain and increase their property values at a rate higher than non-designated neighborhoods. That's almost 100%. I don't think I've read any out of the 100 reports I've read, I don't think I've read one that said the opposite. So this is a way for somebody that owns a house and they want to give it to their children or their grandchildren, that they will give a house that has that has value for that community, for that person. So in a sense, I want to stop here and have a recommendation of approval, but I'm here to answer any questions, hard or easy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Holcomb. Let's start off with questions from the commissioners. Commissioner?
Yeah, I'm curious. So the conservation districts are modeled roughly after the historical or CHAP districts. What is the confines of the rules and protected kind of qualities of these are solely to the inside of the property lines? That's correct? The conservation district would not include anything like pavers or, okay.
Yes, it does.
It would?
Yeah, DOT gets mad at us when we make them preserve their granite curbs.
Right. So would the conservation district preserve the granite curbs or things of that nature? Or unique flaggers or anything like that?
The answer is that would be part of the discussion with the community. And then we would say, hey, you got some great granite curbs here. Do you all want to see these being preserved? And CHAP staff would say, I think that's important. What do you all think? And if the community said yes, we would list that as a component that CHAP would review. That's how we would do the conservation districts. But everything's sort of on the table, except for tables and pots and, that you can move around and things. But
Okay.
So,
So what's the effective delineation between a conservation and a CHAP district?
All right.
If it contains all of the same protective powers,
it doesn't.
okay.
Local historic district designation, as we have it right now, states that all exterior changes must be reviewed and approved by CHAP. So that's everything. That's your deck in the backyard, that's your shed if you're putting down footers in your backyard, that's the pavers on the street. You know, it's automatic. And we have design guidelines for that. In a conservation district, what we would do is we would create a list of the alterations that CHAP staff and the commission would review. So it's only that list we would review. So if somebody wanted,
Until it existed for 10 years and that list got long enough so that it was comprehensive of. Just wondering if there aren't any.
The list, so when you go through and designate an area in a conservation district, included in the council bill is the list of things that you're going to protect, correct?
that's correct.
So in order to add to that list, you have to go back and amend the council bill.
Well, we hope to set it up that you go back to the Preservation Commission and go through their process to amend the full and proper study. Meaning that we wouldn't have to go get a city council bill to amend that list. We would go to the CHAP board.
I'll leave that up to the city council whether or not they think that's appropriate. But
Yeah, yeah.
I think that, from my perspective, that opens the door for city council gets involved up front, and all of a sudden that list becomes 10 times more expansive than the council person ever envisioned it to be because they don't have any oversight on it anymore. So, but
Yeah, yeah. Hear you.
that's outside of my pay grade.
Okay, thank you.
Does that answer your question? Does that,
Answers my question.
okay? Councilman Costello, was that 4A? No. Do you have any questions for Mr. Holcomb? Eric? Do you have, okay.
Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Holcomb.
Commissioner Ivanovich, did I get that right?
Yes.
Good. I did something right today. Do you have any questions for Mr. Holcomb? Vice Chair Stevenson.
No questions. Thank you I know this was in response to, community wishes, and so it's a great compromise. I appreciate you putting it forward.
Thank you.
So my only question kind of dovetails on what Commissioner Burnett's question was, which was, okay, so now I'm in this conservation district, and I'm a property owner, and I want to maintain my building, and it's either on the list or it's not on the list. If it's on the list, do I get, and I expend some money in doing it, do I get a tax credit for, do I get it, how does it help me as a property owner?
You would be eligible for the tax, we hope to make it eligible for all of the tax credit programs out there, local, state, and federal.
Okay.
Now, if you were just a ordinary homeowner, that would mean eligibility for the local and the state, because the federal is only for income-producing properties. So, but if you did go for the tax credit, you would then be kicked into that program and that program's criteria.
Right, so I'm in a historic district, but I'm not a historic property, right?
Right.
And so now I'm in this conservation district. I'm just trying to get the overlays in my own mind. So if I'm in a historic district, but I'm not a historic property, can I get tax incentives?
You cannot get historic preservation tax incentives, but the city has other incentives that you would be able to get to.
And this could be part of those other incentives. If I'm in a conservation district, and one of the things on the list of that the Preservation Commission, along with the community, is designated and said, okay, we really want to save these stoops or whatever it is, and I got to fix my stoop, I can now get a tax credit for fixing my stoop because I'm in this conservation area?
Correct. Well, correct, but you'd still have to go through that tax credit Process, yeah.
Sure. I mean, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But here, before this was
Absolutely.
approved, I'm not a historic property, and so, and I wouldn't, there would be no potential incentive for me to take advantage of.
That's right.
Okay. Clear as mud to me. All right. With that, I open it up to the public. Is there anyone here in the public who would like to speak or on this agenda item?
Sandy Sparks, Charles Village. Charles Village was designated a National Historic District back in the 1980s. Barbara Hoff, who was a legendary planner here, led the way to create that district. From day one, because of the complexity of Charles Village, the number of rental properties, it was never going to be feasible for us to be a local CHAP district, because it's my understanding that to become a CHAP district, you have to have approval from the people within the district. It's not simply getting a city council bill. So the complexity of Charles Village with all these mixed ownership, that was never going to happen. So all these years later, we have a strong land use committee. We work very hard to maintain what we can. And Charles Village is very, I would say, the integrity of the architecture within Charles Village is quite good. So, but we are a neighborhood with porches. They are readily removed by people who have no clue as to why they should remain. So we don't, so that's just one example. So for years, we've been talking to Eric about what could we do to have some kind of incentive for people to maintain the quality of what we have of the buildings. And so to me, this is long, long overdue that we create these, maybe they're called hybrid, but they're a conservation district. And I know that Eric has researched this nationwide, and there are other cities that have similar kind of programs. And so I'm a strong proponent of Baltimore City adopting this tool for historic preservation.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the speaker from the commission? Seeing none, thank you very much, Ms. Spurs. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak on this agenda item? Seeing none, I close the public hearing. Questions, comments, deliberations? We are, in this particular instance, a recommending body to the city council on the city council bill. So, any thoughts?
My only recommendation would be to take this, circulate it amongst city agencies to determine if this is truly going to be like a CHAP light. Surely there may be some items that we would want to exclude from the list of possible protected things. I would think that, for example, like curbs and flagstones and paving stones, things like that, that cost, frankly, a lot of money to maintain. The city does not always keep these things in inventory, and so they will be forced to keep them in inventory. Things like that, if this is truly a CHAP or historical district light, it may be beneficial to create a list of things that this would not protect.
As an alternative, can I throw something out that it's mandatory that when a conservation district is being developed, that conservation district must be reviewed by all city agencies?
I think that that'd be great, yeah.
I mean, I think if we were to amend the proposed bill to say, okay, you know, the Preservation Commission and the neighborhood have come up with this comprehensive list, and gee, a lot of them deal with what's in the public right-of-way, and, you know, they're not responsible for that and don't have any, but like you said, DPW, DOT, whomever, doesn't have the opportunity to, you know, to financially support that.
Yeah.
I I would support the idea of a review process. However, I specifically take exception to the issue of granite curbs in places where they exist, because it's not fair to communities that have, inherent historic value built into their community, and then the city comes through, for utility work and just rips stuff out and replaces it not in kind with what was there before. That is that's a devaluing of the public space that exists. So I will die on that hill as someone who has a granite curb in front of their house. But
I suggest
agree
you
that
go
there should
outside
be
and fence it out.
input.
I mean, you're right.
Yeah.
I can see the benefit of both. I think there should be a review process, but maybe not a veto process. So,
I would also just state that
no, I'm just kidding.
CHAP already has review authority over all publicly owned property. So we work with DOT all the time with this, in and outside of districts. And it's an advisory role, it's not the approval authority. But remember, we do this all the time.
Okay. All right, so I mean, I think, I would, based on that, I still think you probably would like to propose an amendment to this that would request a review by city agencies as that each district is, and then it's a review, not a veto. Cool?
Please.
Okay, do we have a motion as such?
I would motion.
You would move?
Yeah, I would move.
Second.
All right. See, 10 minutes ago, you were 5 minutes ago, y'all were maybe, now you're first and second. Great. Madam Secretary, will you call roll?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Ivanovich?
Yes.
Commissioner Costello?
Yes.
Commissioner Burnett?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevenson?
Approve.
Mr. Chair,
Approve. Good luck.
the motion passes.
All right, next on our agenda.
The next item is City Council Bill 24-0578, conditional use conversion of a single-family dwelling unit to 3 dwelling units in the R8 zoning district, 2732 Reisterstown Road, 7th District.
Mr. Tiso.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. We have two conversions for you here. This one is for 2732 Reisterstown Road, and both of these will be in our western district. So there's the property, fourth one in from the end. And overhead from the street side, from the back. And here we are at the street view. So by way of background, this is a request for a conversion for 3 dwelling units.
That's already been converted.
It actually was lawfully established as 3 units. So,
Lawfully established.
yeah, it was. And in fact, in my opinion, I'm not sure that this bill is necessarily needed. In its history and in my staff report, there were 3 separate permits over 2002, 2006, 2008 that were all filed to reduce the prior existing 3 units to a single-family unit, because that was one of the things that folks sometimes did to avoid having to pay the multifamily dwelling license and sidestep inspections. And then there was a second one in 2008 that was finalized but was never issued. So at least from my examination of the records and from zoning cards, it looks to me like 3 units was the last authorized use for this property. I suspect they probably could have gone to the zoning board for them to establish the lawful non-conforming use is continuing, but here we are. So the purchaser bought the building, it still had 3 units in it. So they're kind of caught in a rock and a hard place. They're 4 BGE meters. So we're just trying to basically get it cleaned up. And then so there's the permits I was just talking about. Again, 3 were voided, 1 was finalized but never actually issued. Again, I can't explain why that was. Looked like somebody over time was looking at using the property possibly as some form of group home, but it just never came to fruition. So running through the conversion standards is actually pretty easy in this case because it's already a 3-unit building. There's literally not going to be any impact that wouldn't have been previously waived by the board in prior circumstances. So it meets all of the requirements for bulk standards, for unit size, for building size, because of its prior use, the parking isn't even required because that would have been previously waived. So while there is a parking variance included in the bill, it may not be needed, but it's there regardless. So with that, we recommend approval to continue that use.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tiso. Questions, Councilman Costello?
Nope.
Commissioner Ivanovich?
No.
Vice Chair Stevenson?
No.
Commissioner Burnett?
No.
Real quickly, I mean, this may be just to clean up as a potential non-conforming use.
I mean, yeah.
Because
I'm
once
not-
it becomes a conditional use, it's governed by the conditional use standards, not a non-conforming use, correct?
Well, yes, so.
There's
it-
enough
it would-
lawyers in the room to
It would be
figure out whether that's
non-conforming, I would argue it is currently
non-conforming.
yeah, but in any case, it is what it is.
Why is it non-conforming?
Possibly only because of the parking. I can't prove its status, whether the 3 units were approved before 1971 when no parking was required. If the answer is yes, or if it was waived lawfully, I just couldn't find that in the case record, then it may be non-conforming. If it was prior to 71, it could be fully conforming. I just can't prove that. But I have to rely on the zoning administrator who
This just
sent it
cleans
to
it up.
this process. So if it were me, this may have just gone to the board, but I'm not the guy.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Tiso. Is there anyone here from the public who would like to speak on this agenda item? Seeing none.
The applicant's here in case you have questions, but
I'm sorry?
the applicant is here in case you have questions.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone who would like to speak on this? Seeing none, I close the public hearing. Questions, comments, deliberations amongst the commission?
Motion to approve?
Thank you, Vice Chair Stevenson. Do we have a second?
Seconded.
Thank you, Commissioner Burnett. Madam Secretary, will you call a roll?
Yes. Yes, Commissioner Ivanovich?
Yes.
Commissioner Costello?
Yes.
Commissioner Burnett?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevenson?
Approve?
Mr. Chair,
Approved.
that concludes the vote session.
Next on our agenda,
Our next item is City Council Bill 24-0579, zoning conditional use conversion of a single-family dwelling into 2 dwelling units in the R8 zoning district. Variances, 523 North Calhoun Street in the 9th District.
oh, Mr. Tiso.
Good afternoon again.
Wow, it's good to see you.
Hopefully by next time you see me, we will have 3 new staff members in our division, and you might not have to hear from me as often.
Oh, that'd be a shame. That would be a shame.
I will take
No,
that in
I'm-
literal
I'm-
sense, thank you.
I
Mr. Chair.
know, no, that would be a shame not to hear from you.
So this, here's the property here. This is a request for 2 dwelling units. This is in some ways similar to our last one, where the last authorized use of the property was for 3 units, though they're asking for 2. But under the prior zoning code, before it was updated in 2017, there was a provision that a vacant building would be reset in essence to single-family status. So that is the reason why they're sending it back through the conversion standards. But before it went vacant, it was a 3-unit building. It's in quite poor condition. So again, for the conditional use standards that you're all well familiar with, this would need to have 1,500 square feet of lot area. It's a little over 1,800 square feet, so it meets that requirement. They are intending they're not intending to provide any parking. However, because of its prior uses, 3 uses or 3 dwelling units in it, this is actually a reduction of nonconformity off of what it might have been prior. The building is twice the size in square footage, gross area, not including the basement that's required. And the floor plans that you should have on record, by my estimate, are close to 1,900 square feet, well in excess of the individual unit size that's required. So I believe it meets all of those requirements to be approved for 2 units. And so we are recommending approval.
Thank you very much. Questions? Commissioner Burnett? Vice Chair Stevenson?
No questions.
Commissioner Ivanovich.
No questions.
See, I'm just rolling into that Ivanovich now. It's like, all right, Councilman Costello.
Nope.
Great. I have no questions. Thank you very much. Is there anyone here from the public who would like to speak on this? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Questions, comments, deliberations, on a motion?
Motion to approve?
Thank you, Vice Chair Stevenson. Second?
Seconded.
All right. We're going to get Commissioner Ivanovich to second a motion before this day is over. All right. Madam Secretary, will you call roll?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Ivanovich,
Yes.
Commissioner Costello,
Yes.
Commissioner Burnett,
Approve.
Commissioner Stevenson.
Approve.
Mr. Chair,
Approve.